Today, let's talk about Prince Harry, right?
Okay.
An awful lot going on. We're starting to see a little bit of the old Prince recently, and I think we all kind of like the return to it.
Well, he's doing what he does best, which is actually very genuinely good, worthy charity work. So we've got the Invictus Games coming up. We've got Well Child as well. He's been in Japan recently. But there is a common denominator for a lot of this, which is that he's on his own. And I think he's in his element there, when he is just himself and when he can do the things that really matter to him. And you can't really criticise a guy that's about to go and help raise a load of money for wounded veterans, to help poorly kids, and doing things like that. So, no, good for him at the moment. We are seeing a more relaxed Prince Harry.
So let's talk about the last 18 months, though. I'll politely call it eventful. There's been a lot that's gone on prior to the Queen passing and since. Have we seen rock bottom in the relationship within the Windsor family, or is it at rock bottom at the moment? Because the Mirror this week is saying that they're stuck at rock bottom. Have we seen any change, and are we going to?
Yeah, well, it's hard to see how it could have got any worse. I'm actually going to take you back 5 years. So 5 years from the wedding, 3 years since Megxit, as we called it, 2 years since Oprah, 1 year, sadly, since our Queen died. And it has been an absolutely catastrophic downward spiral from then on. The question really should be, is there actually any recovery possible? You know, we've had Oprah, we've had the book, and I think we are now very, very much at rock bottom. The only way is up. However, with Harry being back over here, a lot of people thought that William or Charles would go and meet him, and it actually looks like they've deliberately avoided him, because Charles is going to be up in Scotland and William is in Wales. So they've scattered themselves around the UK, arguably just to avoid Harry.
But then this is the point, right? For there to be any sort of reconciliation, we need to be able to get everyone in a room. But I imagine there's quite the trust deficit there, because we've seen a lot of very private conversations end up in print.
Well, how can you trust a bloke that now deals in gossip and showbiz tittle-tattle and just uses trashy magazines as currency? How can you trust a bloke who always comes with a Netflix crew in tow? How can you trust a guy that has his own truth as opposed to the truth? So that's always going to be a problem. But the other massive element to this is actually that Harry went after William's wife and also the royal family's identity as a whole, saying that he was trapped in there. And I think until Harry potentially gets divorced and apologises, there is going to be no scope for reconciliation, primarily because I just don't think Kate will let it happen.
When we have seen those glimpses of him in the last couple of weeks, it's like we all know it's still there. We all know that that Harry is still there, that Harry, you know, his passion for the Invictus Games and, you know, a cheeky game of polo here and there. It's like we know it's there, but we only see it when he's on his own, because he seems to behave a bit differently, and there was some reporting this week about how he behaves differently for their brand, as opposed to, I think, perhaps who he is personally.
I think the problem with Harry that he'll never be able to get around is, and I mean this with a fair bit of respect, is he's not necessarily the brightest, okay? And I think he relies on advice. If you look at the way he was brought up, I mean, there were minders everywhere. He was told to do everything. Everything was kind of staged in a way. And then when it wasn't staged, it had a habit of going off the rails a little bit. And so now he'll have all of these brand experts and brand gurus and PR gurus telling him what to do. And they've got it very badly wrong. I mean, what was the Sussex brand before? It had the potential to be this multi-billion-dollar thing, this international fairy tale. And it's turned into a slow-motion car crash of epic proportions.
On the Invictus Games, everyone's looking forward to it. We know Harry is passionate about it. What do you think that he can do, I suppose, in relation to the Games or similar to the Games, that he can endear himself back into the hearts of the British public?
The best Prince Harry moments are the unscripted ones, and we saw him actually on a street somewhere near here, I think, racing Usain Bolt down it. So he's into his sports, he's athletic. I think he should take part in something and really ingratiate himself into that side of things. He does talk a lot about mental health, okay, and clearly the veterans community suffers a huge amount with PTSD and other mental health related issues, so I think he could talk from experience on that. But you know what I do think he could do as well, is do a lot of stuff that's not for the cameras. Harry actually always had the veterans community on his side. You can't take away from him 2 tours of Afghanistan. That's an incredibly brave thing, and he deserves a lot of respect for that. So these are his people. If he goes and just gets in amongst it, I think that will be the right thing. But Meghan is coming to the closing ceremony, and I've heard that she's supposed to be doing a talk on courage to a group, potentially, of wounded military veterans. What does Meghan Markle have to say about that?
Just the idea of Megan talking to veterans about courage and bravery and leadership all seems a bit tone deaf to me.
Yeah, 100% it is tone deaf. I'm not really sure what she has to offer to a bloke who's lost both legs in Afghanistan. I mean, her experience of marrying into royalty, having a taxpayer-funded wedding, then signing multi-million-pound deals, going and moving to a multi-million-pound mansion in Montecito, and crying into Oprah's bosom. I don't really know what message of strength, hope and courage that she could say to somebody who has got aggressive PTSD, has looked the Taliban in the eye and been asked to lay it all on the line for their nation. I actually think they should talk to her about a message of strength and hope and courage, because she could learn a thing or two.